All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to talk about the hidden science behind one of the biggest decisions we ever make, who we choose to be with. And we're going to be looking at this through the lens of some really groundbreaking work by the evolutionary psychologist Dr. David Buss. So let's start with the big question, right? One that pretty much all of us have asked ourselves. Is finding a partner just random luck? Is it just chance? Or is there some kind of hidden logic, a pattern that we're all following? Well, it turns out the answer doesn't start with romance novels or dating apps. It starts way back in our evolutionary past, with a huge scientific theory that changed everything. To really understand attraction, you gotta get the foundation right. And that foundation, well, it was built by Charles Darwin himself, with his theory of sexual selection.
Darwin was brilliant. He realized that survival of the fittest just couldn't explain everything. I mean, think about a peacock's tail. That huge, flashy thing actually makes it harder to survive, right? It's a giant target for predators. So Darwin thought, wait a minute, there has to be something else going on here. And he figured it out. Some traits aren't about survival at all. They're about one thing, reproduction. And this whole game is driven by two key engines.
So these two things work together in this perfect, elegant dance. You've got competition on one side and choice on the other. And here's the cool part. The preferences of one sex, what they find attractive, they literally write the rules for the competition in the other sex. So if one group decides, hey, we like this trait, the other group starts competing like crazy to show it off. So what exactly are those preferences? Let's get into it. This is where Dr. Buss's research is just incredible. He studied 37 different cultures all over the world and found this shockingly clear blueprint for what people want in a long-term partner. And yeah, there are some things everyone wants, but there are also some really consistent, really fascinating differences between men and women. Okay, so first, the universals. It doesn't matter if you're in Zambia or Brazil or France, if you're looking for a serious, committed relationship, these are the things that pop up again and again. Intelligence, kindness, health, these are the bedrock qualities. But this is where the two paths really start to split. So on average, women across all of these cultures put a bit more weight on things that are tied to resources and stability. Now, from an evolutionary perspective, that makes a ton of sense given the massive investment of pregnancy and raising a child. But what's really key here, it's not just about what a guy has right now. It's about his potential, his ambition, his drive. It's that whole long-term resource trajectory. And this quote gets at something so subtle and important. It's this idea of the attention structure. Status isn't just about a fancy car or a big bank account. It's about who commands attention in a room. Who do people listen to when they talk? That's a deep, powerful social cue that our brains are just hardwired to notice. Now, for men, on the other hand, the priorities tend to cluster around cues that signal fertility. And we're not talking about random standards of beauty that culture just made up. Things like clear skin, full lips, a specific waist-to-hip ratio. These are ancient, evolved signals of youth and health, and by extension, the ability to have healthy children. But, and this is a huge but, the entire rulebook gets thrown out the window when we stop talking about long-term commitment. For a short-term fling, a woman might actually prioritize completely different traits. And men, well, men are often willing to lower their standards quite a bit if there's no commitment involved. And this strategic switch is where things can get really messy. Because when these different mating strategies crash into each other, or when the competition gets really intense, we start to see the dark side of all of this. And it usually kicks off with deception. Think about it. The lies people tell on dating apps aren't random. They're perfectly predictably aimed at the evolved preferences we just talked about. He might pretend to be more committed than he is. She might use a photo that's a few years old. It's a strategic game. But deception is just the tip of the iceberg. And then there's jealousy. We tend to think of it as a flaw, as just being insecure. But from an evolutionary point of view, it's actually a super sophisticated alarm system. It's a defense mechanism designed to guard our relationship and alert us to any threats, like a rival trying to move in, or our partner seeming a little too interested in someone else. But as we all know, sometimes that alarm can go haywire. And this number is just staggering. It's the percentage of married people in America who will experience intimate partner violence at some point. This is the absolute most tragic, most extreme end of what scientists call mate retention tactics, strategies that can go all the way from just keeping a closer eye on a partner to outright violence. Which brings us to a really important psychological idea called the dark triad. It's this toxic cocktail of three personality traits. First, you have narcissism, that inflated sense of being better than everyone. Then you have Machiavellianism, a willingness to manipulate and use people to get what you want. And finally, psychopathy, a terrifying lack of empathy. People who are high in these traits, who are more often men, are way more likely to be involved in the worst kinds of conflict, from deception and harassment all the way to coercion.
Okay, so with all this complexity, all this competition and risk, how in the world do we actually navigate it? Well, it all boils down to thinking of it like a marketplace and understanding our own value in that market. Believe it or not, most of us have a pretty good built-in sense of our own mate value and the value of others. It's an intuitive thing, and that's why not everyone is trying to date a movie star. We kind of sort ourselves. We tend to go for people who are in our same league. And that value is made up of two parts: the stuff pretty much everyone agrees is desirable, and then, your own personal tastes. And this leads to a really wild, powerful idea. What if your self-esteem isn't just about feeling good about yourself? What if it's actually an internal monitoring device, a sort of tracker for your social status and your desirability in the world? Think about it. When you succeed, it goes up. When you face rejection, it goes down. Your self-esteem could literally be your brain's internal scoreboard for how you're doing in the mating game. So at the end of the day, understanding all these deep-seated evolutionary forces doesn't mean we're just puppets. It doesn't mean our choices are already made for us. Not at all. But what it does do is give us this incredible new lens to understand ourselves, our desires, our conflicts, and the hidden logic behind one of the most powerful human experiences there is: the search for a partner.